Hey everyone, Dempa here. Today I'm going to be reviewing 6 different flip phones from my collection. The goal of this video is to give a clear, honest look at each one and hopefully help you figure out which phone might be the best fit for you. I'll be going through them in the order they were originally released. The first phone is the Sharp Aqua 601SH from 2013, which I own in both silver and teal. This phone immediately stands out because of how tough it is. It's rated for military-grade shock resistance and is also waterproof and dustproof, which makes it feel more like a tool than a fragile gadget. It has an open button that makes flipping it open with one hand very easy, though closing it takes a bit of force. The hinge makes some clicking noises when you snap it shut, which can feel a little alarming at first even though it's built to handle it. The main display is a 3.4-inch screen with a 540 by 960 resolution, and despite its size, it looks quite sharp, no pun intended. The rear camera is honestly one of the highlights of this phone. It produces surprisingly good photos, especially considering its age and form factor. There's also a small sub-display on the outside that shows the time, date, battery level, and even your step count. Storage comes in at just under 5 GB. It charges over micro USB, and it supports both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. One of my favorite features of the 601SH is the automatic touch cruiser, which is essentially a mouse controlled directly from the keypad. It sounds strange on paper, but in practice it works extremely well and makes navigating apps much smoother than you'd expect on a flip phone. The device runs Android 5, and while that does limit compatibility with some modern apps, most things still work if you're willing to sideload the right APKs. I'm using Microsoft Launcher here, along with apps like Kiss Anime, YouTube Advanced, Via Browser, Twitter, Instagram, Blackplayer, Kotatsu, and APK Pure. This is one of my favorite phones overall and my go-to choice for street photography because of how good the camera is. If you want a flip phone that feels stylish, capable, and genuinely enjoyable to use, this is a strong contender. Next is the Sharp Aqua SH-N01 from 2016, which I own in red. Like the earlier Sharp, this phone is extremely durable, with the same military-grade shock resistance and water and dust protection. It also includes an open button, making one-handed use easy. The phone has a 3.4-inch display, and while I don't have the exact resolution, it's perfectly usable for everyday tasks. The rear camera is solid, though not quite as impressive as the 601SH. Storage comes in at around 4.5 gigs, charging is handled via micro USB, and it supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Unlike the 601SH, the touch cruiser on this model is manual, meaning you have to hold a button to activate it rather than it always being available, which can be kind of a pain sometimes. The SH-N01 also runs Android 5, and most apps work reasonably well with the exception of TikTok. I'm using Microsoft Launcher here as well, with apps including APK Pure, YouTube Advanced, Instagram, Kotatsu, Kiss Anime, Twitter, Via Browser, Blackplayer, and Spotify. Overall, this phone is a great entry point for anyone interested in Android flip phones. It's durable, relatively affordable, at least at the time of writing this, and compatible with a wide range of apps despite its age. Compared to the 601SH, it's a little more basic, but it's still a very solid choice. Moving on, we have the Kyocera KY-41 from 2016, which I own in both pink and green. This phone does not have an open button, so flipping it open takes 2 hands, at least for me anyways. It has a rear-facing camera, though the photo quality is fairly weak compared to the Sharp models. There's a sub-display that shows the time, date, and battery percentage. The phone has about 4 gigs of storage, charges via micro USB, and supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It includes a manual touch cruiser and a 3.4-inch display, though the resolution isn't particularly remarkable. The KY-41 runs Android 5, and because of its limited storage, app selection is much more restricted. I'm not using a launcher here, so this is the phone's default layout. I've installed Blackplayer, Kiss Anime, Instagram, Twitter, and Via Browser, and that's about all it can comfortably handle. I'd describe this phone as a good learning device for people just getting into flip phone customization. It's functional but limited and probably the least capable phone in this lineup. Next is the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2, which I own in black. Released in 2017, this phone feels very different from the others. It's thick, heavy, and extremely sturdy. It's harder to open with one hand, but snapping it closed feels incredibly satisfying. It has a 3.8-inch touchscreen with a resolution of around 480 by 800. Unlike the other phones in this video, it includes both front and rear-facing cameras, though the image quality on both is fairly poor. On the plus side, it has 16 GB of storage, which is generous compared to the others, and battery life is solid, lasting about a full day of moderate use. Charging is done via micro USB. The Folder 2 runs Android 6, which allows access to Google services, but also introduces some frustrating compatibility issues. For example, Twitter does not run properly on this device, even though it works fine on several of my Android 5 phones. Many apps from the Play Store are incompatible, so sideloading is still necessary. I'm using Microsoft Launcher here. The phone includes a built-in music player, which is a nice change from the other devices. However, it does not have a headphone jack, so Bluetooth headphones are basically required. Overall, this is a reliable and sturdy phone, but it lacks some of the personality and flexibility of the Sharp models. Up next is the Kyocera Digno 902KC, released in 2019. I own 2 of these in silver. It does not include an open button or a touch cruiser, keeping things very simple. The phone has a 3.4-inch display with a 540 by 960 resolution and a rear-facing camera. There's also a sub-display that shows the time, battery level, and step count. It includes 8 GB of storage, charges via USB-C, and supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This phone runs Android 8, and I'm using the default launcher. Installed apps include Kiss Anime, Spotify, Via Browser, Twitter, Instagram, APK Pure, YouTube Vanced, Black Player, and a Moonphase app. Like the other Kyocera phones, it's straightforward, durable, and easy to recommend as a starter device for anyone interested in customizing Android flip phones. Finally, we have the Kyocera KY-42C, which I own in red. I'm not entirely sure of its release year, but it runs Android 10, making it the most modern phone in this lineup. It doesn't have an open button or a touch cruiser, but it feels solid and well built. The display is 3.4 inches with a 480 by 854 resolution, and the rear camera produces decent photos. There's a sub-display for time and battery information, 8 gigs of storage, USB-C charging, and support for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I'm using Nova Launcher on this phone. Along with apps like Black Player, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, Kiss Anime, Via Browser, APK Pure, and YouTube Vanced. I tend to use this phone mostly for watching anime, and for whatever reason, Kiss Anime only plays Serial Experiments Lane on this device, which has given it a special place in my collection. Like the other Kyocera phones, it's simple, sturdy, and reliable. For anyone just starting out with flip phone customization, I'd recommend the Kyocera KY-41 or the 902KC. If you want more flexibility and a better camera quality, the Sharp Aquos 601SH or the SH-N01 are excellent choices. And if performance is your priority, the Kyocera KY-42C or the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2 are worth considering. Each of these phones offers something different, and I hope this overview helped you decide which one might be right for you. Thanks for watching.